Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one Black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, good people. I want to welcome you back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. You know, each time we drop a podcast episode, it's my desire to open the eyes of listeners, the hearts of listeners, so that people are not just listening in to Black people talking about Black life in a place like America, but to draw others in to do their part in dismantling racism and becoming a part of the solution. So here we are today. I'm thinking about a situation that took place in early May, where Black students who are alumni or students at a university, my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin, Madison. And in early May, a video surfaced seething with racial slurs towards Black students. I'm reading from the letter from the Black Power Coalition. And they just, and I don't want to re-traumatize or reading the everything that was said in it, but it was some ugly stuff about what this woman wanted Black people to return to, wanted to re-implement, or slavery and working Black people to death, centered around a breakup that this white woman had with a Black student. And it hit local news, went all across the campus, it hit national news, and a group of students spoke up, and they formed themselves and called themselves the Black Power Coalition. And they addressed the leadership of the campus to say, this is not to be tolerated. We need some response. We need some protection. We need you all to keep your promises. And really helped to articulate what they were feeling, what they were afraid of, what they demanded, and what they needed out of an institution that saw itself as their university. And so today, I have a number of members who are from the press and media team from the Black Power Coalition. I'm proud of these young people because this happened right as they were moving into final season. Now, there's some speculation going on, and I'll address some of this to Miss Grace because I happened to meet her at a gathering a few weeks ago. But some of us Black alumni said, it's interesting. It's very curious that a lot of times these things happen right around exam time, midterms, finals. So in addition to all the things these young people are dealing with, they're having to now worry about going into finals, having someone making threats, significant threats, clearly articulated threats against Black people. And so I've got some wonderful young folks who are going to be talking with me for about the next 45 minutes or so, just about this experience, their thoughts, their demands, and what they hope the future holds, not only for students here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, but Black students on predominantly white students across the country. And so I'm going to give them each a chance just to tell their names and where they're from and their majors and their year at UW. And then we'll get into some of the discussion. And Grace, I'll start with you. Could you just give us your name, your year, your major, and where you hail from?
Sure. I'm Grace Ruo. I am Kenyan by way of St. Louis. I am a rising junior majoring in human development and family studies on the pre-med path.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Elaine, how about you?
Hi, my name's Elaine. I'm from Chicago. I'm majoring in information sciences with certificates in African American studies, digital studies, and game design.
All right, great. Lisa, how about you?
All right. Hi, my name is Lisa. I am a rising sophomore. I am a double major in legal studies and psychology, and I'm from Minnesota.
Okay, not far from home. All right. Dorian, how about you?
Hello, my name is Dorian Jones. I'm a Bell Scholar. I will be a junior in the fall, and I'm majoring in marketing in the business school.
All right. That's fantastic. And Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Jeru. I'm originally from Kenya, but I live in Wisconsin, Madison, and and I am going to be a senior this coming year. And I'm double majoring in psychology and African American studies with a certificate in African cultural studies and gender women studies.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, welcome to each of you. Let me just ask, how good does it feel to be finished with your finals and just on this side of everything? Are you all finding space to sort of exhale and realize that some of the craziness is behind you? Not that it's gone, but just how does it feel to be finished with finals in light of everything that's been happening on campus? Stephanie, I see your hand up.
It feels really great, and it feels incredible to kind of take a deep breath and be done. But I think it's also important to acknowledge that a lot of us aren't done. There are members of the coalition as well as Black students on campus that had to take incompletes for their final. So they're still working on getting final grades. And I'm one of those students that I'm done for the most part, but there are a few, there was a class where I needed to take an incomplete just due to the fact that it was so much work to get done and to process at that time. But it's also, as much as it's a relief to be done with the academics, there's still that ongoing fight. So it's like, it's almost as though there's never really an end to, being a Black student, because we're still showing up as Black individuals, but as Black students, even as we're on summer break. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
That's so important to stress, because you're right. You have to still show up as a Black student, and your professors want their work finished, and they may or may not understand the impact of the video and the resulting discussions and the media involvement and the threats against you all. But that, oh yeah, by the way, you're a student, which means you have to complete the semester, which means you have to take your final exams, and that's just the whole part of racism. When we talk about it being systemic, I'm rooting for you all that you all come through this, but there are places and times where students weren't given allowances to take exams later, to finish up later, and end up ruining their careers because of craziness like this. We'll get into these discussions, but for the people who listen to Black Like Me, I want you to understand this is the ripple effect of this kind of ignorance. So I really appreciate how you shared that, and that is really important. Grace, I want to start things off with you, just because we've had a chance to talk a little bit about this, and thank you for pulling this wonderful group together, and for your leadership in this. I know that people are always asking you all how you felt when this all broke, but let me ask you, how does your family feel, Grace? When they found out, wait, this is where I sent my baby. And I don't mean any disrespect. I'm not belittling you all, but I'm a dad of a graduate. So when I look at you all and your young, brilliant, your young faces, your brilliant minds, I just think these are children who are trying to become future something, and they've got to deal with all of this crap, and it's not gone. So I know how I would feel, but I'm curious, family, siblings, what was the sentiment? Friends, what did people say to you when they heard what was happening?
My parents specifically were really scared.
Mm.
And I remember being scared to show them the video because I was coming from Maui. My scholarship a few of us in my scholarship had been given an opportunity to do some outreach work in Maui. So I saw the video when I was in the airport, and I was like, I can't show this to my parents yet. But by the time I landed in Madison, they had already seen it, and they were asking me if I'd seen it, and they were like, this is terrible. Why are things like this being said in 2023? Do you know this girl? I remember my mom asking me if I know that girl. I was like, I don't know her, but I know that she is a daughter of the UW. So yeah, they were really scared, and I didn't know how to comfort them. They didn't know how to comfort me. So it was just a lot of, it was like a collective confusion, I would say.
Sure. How about others? Oh, Elaine, yes.
So it was a very crazy time for me and my family because I had just been revealed in my sorority. I'm a Zeta, and I had just got like revealed and everything, and I was on this high, and then the video came out, and I was like, oh, well, Personally, with me, I come from a civil rights family. My great grandfather was a very prominent civil rights activist here in Chicago, and he even has a high school named after him. So I'm very used to like the civil rights space
Wow.
and everything. But my family, of course, they're very civil rights people too. So they were like, "We're calling the NAACP right now." I was like, "Oh, well, okay, let's do it." It was more so because throughout Madison, my time at Madison, I've had so many racist experiences. I'm very, when these kinds of things happen, I guess you could say I got pretty desensitized to it. So my reaction was like, well, another day at Madison. And but I was also like, okay, so what can we do to stop this from becoming another day at Madison? So I would say my reaction was less intense than my family's. My family was definitely scared for me and scared for my safety. While I was just called my mom and I was like, okay, mom, I'm about to do protest stuff. The white people might hunt me down, but I'll be fine. She was like, you're gonna do what? So it was definitely, I'm a pretty fearless person, so I wasn't afraid for my safety because at the end of the day, stuff needs to get done. But my mom and my family definitely were crying and like, you need to come home early.
Wow. Dorian, thank you for that, Elaine.
With my family, they were mainly surprised about the situation. They didn't know exactly what was going on. So when I got home from college after my exams that I'm studying, they asked me about it and I basically broke it down to them. They were just like, wow, like from like even in quarantine, like when the things were going down with George Floyd here in Milwaukee and they were protesting, my parents didn't want me to go. And I went anyways. And I feel like this situation in particular really showed that like I'm not here just to be in one situation and kind of jump out of it. Like I'm here for all of it. And I think that they really saw how that Dr. King's spirit was kind of instilled in me ever since I was young.
I'd like to add on to
Yeah.
that. So, as a first generation student of like immigrant parents, the entire experience of college has been very unique for my family. And so I actually am a transfer. I transferred to UW from the University of Illinois at Chicago, which is one of the more diverse campus, like public campuses in the country, but it still isn't as diverse as you would think. And with transferring to UW, this was the school that my parents had always talked about because it was close to home. It was, they were, oh, you don't want to be a Badger, things like that. And it wasn't necessarily that I didn't want to be a Badger from the beginning. It was the fact that I knew what it took to be a Black Badger. And so when this happened, I remember I actually didn't tell my parents right away. And I think they had an idea of it, but they're also the news that they kind of watch and what they involve themselves in is more things that are happening back home. So I remember sending the video to my family group chat, and I was like, just letting you guys know this is happening. And I remember having a conversation with my mom and dad, and I had to almost explain, like, they were so baffled, especially coming from a country where everyone looks like you, in an environment where everyone just loves the beauty of our skin and the beauty of our heritage. It's been quite the adjustment for my family and for my parents especially, because they still surround themselves with that. And it sucks to be in an environment where I'm like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable walking around. And the thing is that my dad, he didn't even approach it from the sense of like, oh, it's 2023. His biggest thing was, why would someone have so much hate in their heart for a group of people that haven't necessarily done anything to you? Because it's like that message wasn't at one person. And I know it was because of a breakup, but it's not about her, but that message was to the larger Black student body. And my dad just kept questioning. He was like, why would someone have so much hatred in their heart for a group of people that haven't done anything to her, you know? And we exist. We our existence is troubling for people. And that's what really he couldn't wrap his head around. And we had a very long conversation, and he just kept going back to that of like, I've been taught my whole life that, you know, you love people and you look at everyone the same, and clearly that's not the case. And I think it was almost I think it made them realize why this wasn't necessarily my dream school to begin with, and why I was hesitant about coming to Madison. And I think that broke their heart because they wanted it to be
Sure.
the place that I thrived in, both academically and socially. And in that moment, they realized that that wasn't the case. And it stopped being the place they wanted me at. And that was heartbreaking for me to see. And I think it was even more heartbreaking for them.
Mhm, mhm. How did this wonderful coalition come together? I mean, I'm sure there's a number of folks. I'm not just asking for like one person to be named, but did you use social media? Did people just say, "Hey, Black students, if you're on campus, meet us at the terrace. We need to do something"? Like, somebody talk to me a little bit about how it gathered, because I'm telling you, I've been around this community for 50 years. My family's been a part of this campus for 50 years on and off. I've never seen a coalescence of a coalition put together so quickly as what you all did.
It was pretty much what you said. We had like a Black town hall meeting. We were like, okay, come to the law building, this room at 6 p.m. And
Wow. You did that. I'm sorry, you did that through like you just blasted it through like a Facebook page for UW, or like what were the platforms that you used to reach out to Black students?
it was mainly Instagram. So we would have like someone create a flyer, and then a lot of us would post that flyer on our personal Instagram like stories. And the Instagram story is up for 24 hours. It's sort of like a status. So
Sure.
we left that up, and we were like, okay, everybody come to this room at 6. And the room, I think the classroom that we got ended up being too small. So
I bet.
yeah, I remember people saying like, okay, don't leave the doors open. We don't want anybody outside hearing it. But it was like, we kind of had to open a door or two because there were people like filling up even the hallways. I'm laughing. It's because I'm so proud of what we've been able to put together in such a short time. But yeah, it came together really quickly, and I'm really proud.
And you all, how did leadership emerge? Were there elections? You just appointed people, put a committee together? Because I mean, just your action is a lesson in leadership development. It is a lesson in civil rights. And so that's why I'm asking these things, because I don't want this conversation to be all focused on I won't even say her name, on this woman that put this video up. I want to talk about the genius and the innovation of my people and what you all did on this campus. So how did the leadership team emerge?
At first, we were very hesitant about a leadership team because the biggest thing we wanted was for this to feel like a community space and not one person's running something and other people aren't allowed to speak up. So, but then before the semester ended, we decided to vote on 4 positions just to have just a bit more structure as the summer begins. And these are positions that folks within the coalition were able to vote for. So I'm actually the secretary for the Black Power Coalition as well. And some of the other folks in the leadership role are not part of the media team, so they weren't able to be here with us. But these roles are more just to kind of create structure. But I think a big emphasis of the coalition is that it's not one person's leading us. It's about committees and it's about communities and things like that. And we have different ways that folks can show up and have leadership, but we also have like smaller committees that are where we're allowed to kind of voice our opinions. And I think that's what's very important about movements like this is they have to be centered around the student body and the Black community as a whole. But because I feel like sometimes the words like leadership can come off with a somewhat negative connotation, but that's not what we want it to be. Because as a whole, we are the Black Power Coalition, and we want to be represented as a community, a Black community, and like a Black student community, and not necessarily picking apart the leaders of the group. I don't know if I explained that very well. I think
you are.
One of the other, I know like Grace could add on to that, or Elaine or Dorian, just kind of the emphasis of being a community-based group rather than, oh, here's the president, vice president, so on and so forth.
Sounds like you want to avoid a hierarchical structure where so much falls on the shoulders of one or two people.
Yes, exactly.
So just thinking through that is so impressive as well. So for folks who aren't familiar, we'll put links to things inside the notes section, the podcast notes, so that if you want to watch the video. I haven't brought myself to watch it. I've gotten sort of the blow by blow, but I just didn't want to hear this rant and stuff, this craziness. But let me ask you, what do you think has contributed to white students feeling emboldened to say things like this and put it in social media where others can find it? As you just think through this, how do you all discuss that? We can get into the details of what she said, but my mind hunts to, why does she think she could say that and not have any blowback? Elaine?
So the reason that a lot of white students think and act this way is because there's not pushback for their actions. Well, there's pushback from the Black community, but there's not administrative pushback. And what I mean by that is, I've mentioned I've had a lot of racist experiences here at Madison. Madison is my first time being in a space where Black people are not the majority. I come from all Black areas. My school that I went to was about 90% Black. I'm from inner city Chicago. I can go months without seeing a white person. So literally, I've grown up kind of in like this Black space, and I came to this very white space, and because I wanted to challenge myself. And I was like, I told my mom, I was like, I'm not going to HBCU because Black spaces are my comfort zone. And I actually figured this out when I was a senior, and my mom was doing a marathon, and I went with her to one of the meetings. And it was a space where for the first time I was in a room where I was one of the only Black people, and I had a panic attack. And I knew going in. Yes, I had a full out panic attack. I was like, Mom, there's so many white people. She was like, yeah, this is the world. And so I knew going into my profession, I needed to be in more spaces that had white people, because my profession I'm going into is mostly white people anyway. So I was like, I need to go to somewhere that will take me out of my comfort zone and force me to know how to navigate these spaces, because I've been in safe Black communities all my life. So when I came to Madison, it was very much a culture shock, but very much intense to see. Like, I already knew, because I've already had like that kind of education about white people, but I didn't realize like the extent of which. For example, and it's not just white people, it's non-Black people as well. I've had people call me out of my name. My real name's Jakayla. I've had people call me Jaquifa. I had a white student touch my hair at the zoo like I was one of the animal exhibits. And she was like, "Oh, you're so cute." I had another white student come after one of my positions that also affects my housing. And she tried to get me fired just because there was like a situation where I needed to handle something and I wasn't able to talk to her right in that moment. And she was upset about it. So she tried to get me fired. And I've had a lot of these experiences. So, and I've also had a professor give me the lowest grades in the class, just because I was the Black student. And of course, I've gone and reported all of these experiences countless times. And from what I've seen is, if it is housing related issues, it's more likely to be handled because I met the people in those offices and they really truly care. But when it comes to academic spaces, it won't be handled. The only thing people will get is a slap on the wrist. And a lot of times it depends a lot on the student themselves to go and report when things happen. And even when you report when things happen, if it doesn't go to the right person, nothing will be done. The girl that touched my hair, she cried and said, "You're making a big deal out of this." And the professor was like, "You are." The boy that
Wow.
the boy that was calling me out of my name, nothing happened to him. He was just like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal." One time I wrote Black History Month, Happy Black History Month on the board, and they erased it. And I was like, "Why?" And they were like, "Why should we have this on the board?" And that was another student of color. So it's just like Black students have received a lot of pushback from students of color, from other students, fellow students of color, and the white students as a majority. But because people don't take it as seriously, it allows for these things to continue.
It's great input and great insight, Elaine. Grace, I saw your hand.
Echo what you said, like to a T, Elaine, because when I came from Kenya, I moved to St. Louis, which has a really big Kenyan community. And in my high school, I was speaking Swahili in my biology class, right? So there were a lot of Kenyan students, a lot of Nigerian students, it was really diverse. And then I was accepted into UW Madison as a first wave scholar. And I remember hearing about how that scholarship was so like selective and all this. I was like, I mean, if I got it, I'm gonna go, I guess, you know? And I noticed, as well as the culture shock of being the only Black person in so many spaces, I noticed that Madison thinks of itself as sort of a mecca of Wisconsin. Because after my freshman year, I interned at the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art. I was their first American Alliance of Museum Directors intern. And it was at a time in which I believe 23 Black women artists were being showcased, like their work was being showcased at the museum. And I remember being like, okay, maybe I was meant to be here, you know? And then I think it was June 24th, the last Friday of June, Miss Laleta G's work was vandalized and stolen. And I remember the executive director at the museum not doing anything about it. And I was in the administrative office, so I went to every meeting. And myself and two other Black women would always ask, you know, what's supposed to happen now? What action is the museum going to take to show that we're not, we're also against Miss G's work being vandalized? And the director was like, I can't speak on that due to legal reasons. And I just remember I was really angry. So myself, the two other Black women that worked at the museum at the time, Miss Laleta G and a few other Black women put together a panel, and we called it Black Women Artists Speak, and spoke to the Madison community about how they can better support Black artists. And that's when it really clicked in my head that Madison, a lot of folks in Madison are from like really, really small towns. And so when they come to Madison, it is the most diverse space they've ever been in. And they read white fragility and they're like, I get it. And they think that's enough. But I think that's why there wasn't as much pushback, is because they think she said she would do blah, 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 but she didn't do it. So she was just venting. I don't know how to explain what it is I want to say, but
No, you're saying it. You're saying it. I think it's making a lot of us mad. I know I'm getting pissed.
yeah, it's shocking.
I'm gonna echo that just because me and Grace
Sure.
have had very like similar experiences. Like she said, so I moved to the US when I was 10, and we moved to a predominantly white town, which is actually named after the first president. It's Columbus, Wisconsin, which the irony. And at that school, it's interesting because like I think a lot of students have moments when they realize they're Black. And it's not in the sense of like, oh, I'm realizing I'm Black. I've never known that. But that moment when you really realize that like, oh, I'm a Black person and that is all I am. And I actually wrote my personal essay for UW on that topic, which I think is also ironic. So my sophomore
Very.
year, my sophomore year of high school, right before I transferred to a different school, my family was moving. Somebody that I considered a friend, I knew they kind of had some racist, like, I mean, ideas and things like that. But it was also like when you're one of 3 Black students, it's like you don't have much choice but to be friends with, you know, just the people around you who are majority white students. And
Right.
I remember it was the last day of class, and she was I had already taken my things home out of anyone that like went to public school, you know, you took your stuff out of your lockers, took them home and had those big like paper bags. So she asked me to help her. And out of the kindness of my heart, I was like, yeah, for sure. I didn't really think much of it. But yeah, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, yeah, sure, that's totally fine. And I went to help her take her bag out. And she said to me, and while you're at it, you can go pick cotton from my farm. And that was the biggest, like in my mind, I was like, okay, like, you know, and I think we've all had those moments where we're like, wow, like our skin color is really the epitome of how we are seen and how we are presented in the world and these institutions. And I think it's important to understand that institutions such as UW, like they rely on white fragility and they rely on white students' tears to keep up their reputation. And it's like white students get away with these things because they're the children of UW. When UW thinks about their students, and this goes to, for example, the homecoming incident that happened in 2020
Right.
when their homecoming video did not include a single Black student, but that wasn't a mistake. Because if you think about how many people have to go through these things that are put out, like such as that, the homecoming video probably had to go through multiple people to get approved. And you
Right.
can't tell me that not one person in that entire process looked at that and said, oh, wait, something's not right. But it's because the white students, they uphold UW's foundation. And at the end of the day, they'll be protected, they'll be heard, they'll be respected, especially as students whose parents are pouring in millions of dollars into these institutions. UW is not gonna say, oh, wait, we're gonna expel your student, stop giving us money. Like that's the last thing that the institution is gonna say, but these are their children. And it's it kind of can come off in like it's a malicious way of thinking about it, but it's true. As a parent, you protect your children no matter what, whether they do something right, whether they do something wrong, something you don't agree with, you protect your children. And that's how I view UW and their white students. They protect them no matter the cost. And they would rather put their name in jeopardy, but make sure that their students are safe and their children are safe. And it's a pretty cynical method and the way of thinking about it, but or what's it called? But it's like it's true. It's the way it is, as much as they try to hide it. But I'm not going to give her the power of giving her name, of saying her name out loud. But she is UW Madison's child, and they're going to protect her at all costs. And that's why she hasn't been expelled. And that's why we haven't heard anything. And that's why every precaution necessary has been taken to make sure that she remains a part of this institution, because that is their child. For lack of a better way to phrase it, that's the truth that they don't want other students of color as well as the community to see.
Why support Black Like Me podcast? There are very few places where Black activists and innovators can listen to and hear someone so aptly and culturally appropriately voice their concerns and dreams and aspirations and fears and illnesses and cultural commonalities. Equally, there are so few places where concerned non-Black thinkers and feelers, readers and watchers, lovers of culture, stalwarts of racial justice and harmony can go to learn, lean in, and to be a quiet fly on the wall in Black spaces and experience deep personal transformation through listening to honest Black people's truth. Black Like Me podcast is that for so many people in this nation and around the world. Now, while your financial support beginning at as little as $2 a month will get you access to pre-released information, updates, conversations, insights, and exclusive events, your support also affords us the opportunity to expand the quality and reach of our excellent programming in thoughtful and authentic ways to more and more people. And more importantly, white people need to stop trying to get free shit from Black people. All right, seriously, your financial support is a vote of confidence, and it's an enabler of vision and innovation. So why not click that link today and join the movement? I want to thank you in advance for your support and your partnership. You know, the irony of what you're sharing with us, Stephanie, is something that I think came out of Grace when we and other members of your coalition met, that she was sequestered someplace. This lady was back at home with permission, taking her classes, finishing her classes at home, but yet Black students were being threatened walking down the street. I mean, wasn't there even an arrest made on Langdon Street because of someone accosting a young Black student from Chicago? And so the irony that she says this stuff, but she doesn't mean that she was just sad, but she's secure at home, but Black students and students of color are still walking around with the sentiment of people who are thinking you all just took this out of context. She was just, her heart was hurting. She didn't have the power to really make you all slaves again, to make us slaves again. But yet she had the power to embolden other people to continue the legacy of threatening Black students or making that space so uncomfortable. Tell me this, what allies did you find that surprised you? And again, you'll notice that I'm trying not to ask some of the obvious questions because you had a chance to write about it and talk to the media about it. I love the idea that you all are sharing things that people don't necessarily have asked or that I've read about. And so I'm really curious, like if it's groups, professors, it could be individuals or it could be groups. I'm curious who might have had some surprising allyship. Elaine, I see your hand.
I can definitely speak to this. I've had a few allies that are like, So I only have, all my friends are Black or people of color. I only have one white friend in this world. And the way she stepped up, I was like, okay, emotional support white woman. Like there was a time where I was just doing work and she texted me. She was like, hey, just checking in. Are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm just very stressed right now, trying to do my best. She was like, have you ate today? I was like, no. She was like, okay, open the door. I was like, what? She had came and brought me food and she just fed me, sat with me, let me talk and cry and vent. And I was like, now I'm happy I gave you some of my Heralds because I was a little, I gave her Heralds one day and I was like, what am I giving this?
Wait, did you give her the mild sauce or did you give her the hot sauce?
I gave her the mild sauce with the salt and pepper. I was like, why am I feeding this white, but I actually love her to death. And then my one of my professors were amazing. One of my professors, he's still my favorite professor, Stephen Myers, best professor ever. I
What department?
he's the
What department?
geology.
Okay, gotcha.
So I came to talk to him. It was right before the exam. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry, all this late. I have this late work, everything going on with the Black students on campus. He was like, hey, I know. And you know what? You don't have to take your exam today. You can either take it on, because it was a Sunday. He said, you can take it on Tuesday or Wednesday, whichever one works best for you. Let me know.
Wow.
And I took my exam, and then after I was done, he pulled me to his side. He was like, hey, are you comfortable with just talking? I want to check in with you. And we had like a really great discussion about Black students at Madison. And he was saying that his wife, I believe she's Ecuadorian, and she was talking about those experiences and what she had learned about Black women's experiences. And he really wanted to check on me. And then I had a couple other professors who were really like, one of my other professors, what is his name? Peter Douglas? I think that's his name. I know his first name is Peter. He gave me an extension on my stuff. He was like, yeah, turn it in when you're mentally able to. I was like, oh my God. So those two professors,
Wow.
and they're both
Wow.
white men. They're both white men. So that was really really took my heart. And then also my bosses at my jobs that I work at were literally, when all of this came out, I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I gotta go. I can't be on my shift today. I have to go do stuff with the Black Power Coalition. They were like, you're fine. Don't even worry about it. And they let me rearrange my schedule so I could come in and do a lot of work with the coalition and everything. And I received no repercussions for missing some of my work that I was supposed to do.
That's fantastic.
And my bosses also made sure, they were like, did you eat here? I got food for you. One of my bosses just was making sure I ate and everything. And they were like, did you sleep? And it was a really amazing thing to find that support. And then especially with my sorority sisters, they definitely were like, you need to go to sleep because I know you're awake right now. Because I would be up to 7 a.m. trying to get all of my assignments in on time. And they would wake up and be like, go to sleep now. So it was definitely a lot of support I got. And I managed to finish the semester with all A's and B's. That's the first time I ever did that at Madison.
Congratulations.
Like, whew.
That is fantastic. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of all of you, but I'm proud of you for sharing that. Oh man, Stephanie.
One ally that I'd like to specifically give a shout out to is she was my professor fall semester, and then my TA spring semester, Megan Brune. She's in the social psychology department. I have never had an instructor or professor that has shown so much care for her students. Not only did she reach out to me before I even reached out to her to check in, but on the day of our second protest, she showed up and willingly appointed herself / she did ask the members of the coalition whether she could be a stand-in for someone to talk to police officers. If anything came up, she volunteered herself to, if you need something communicated, if they ask you something and you're not comfortable answering, find me. She gave multiple students her phone number and was like, hey, if anything comes up, I will literally almost because our focus was to have white allies that showed up on the outside when we were marching and just having that celebration that we had. And she almost put herself in the front line of, I will protect you all at whatever cost. And that, I've never seen a white person show up like that. The way she made an effort to find me, and she gave me her phone number, which what she was like, if you need anything, if anything's happened, call me, I will show up. She stayed from beginning to end and some to make sure that we all felt safe. And I don't interact well with police officers. I know a lot of other Black people can attest, it could be in the best situation and I will still be anxious as ever because they just, and people are like, oh, they're not all bad. I don't care. I don't do well with law enforcement, and just for her to put herself in that situation where she was like, I will talk to whoever I need to make sure that you are all comfortable. That was incredible. And I love her as a person, as an instructor. She was absolutely incredible. So I had to give a shout out to her.
Oh, we need to remember that in these times, people do stand up and do the right thing. Thank you for sharing that. Grace.
So, I'm going to be a STEM immersion peer leader through With Science in the fall. And in order for me to have been given that opportunity, I had to take 2 classes in the spring. And one of them was like the framework of leadership through like the Wisconsin idea. And the other one was a 2-credit internship class. I basically just had to turn in reflections every month. And I remember emailing, her name is Keegan. She's also in the With Science like department. And I let her know that I would not be able to turn in my May reflection because of everything that was going on. And I told her, I ended the email with, for my safety, I'm asking that you don't share with anybody what I've told you in this email. And she responded so quickly. And she was like, that's okay. Don't worry about it. You'll end the semester with an A. And let me know if there's anything I can do for you. It's like, okay, Keegan. Yeah, I remember feeling so much relief because when I first saw the video, I drafted an email template, and we added it. We made sure that everyone had access to it, but I drafted an email template and I sent it to all my professors, letting them know that I would not be coming to class basically for the whole week of May 1st. So for her to have responded so quickly and to let me know that I wouldn't have to worry about my semester grade, really, I was able to breathe a bit easier.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dorian, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute, if I may. Is racism on campus different for Black male students than it is for Black female students, in your opinion? Or your experiences?
I feel like, at least for me personally, I feel like it's a little bit looser. I feel like it's definitely more, how do I want to say this? I feel like it takes a lot to get under a man's skin. Yeah, I feel like it takes a lot to get under a man's skin because we're dealing with these things multiple times throughout the day. I feel like even like for this situation, it really brought a lot of that to light. And I mean, I don't really have much to add. I'm kind of just used to this, if I'm being honest.
One of the things I noticed is military, sports. There are places where Black and white men in just mainstream life, in high school and college, interact. I don't necessarily see those same circles with Black women and white women. I don't know what those spaces are. I don't say that they don't exist, and it doesn't make it better or easier. I just think that there's a whole lot of unspoken and unresolved stuff concerning Black women with white population that's never come to surface. It goes way back to mistresses and slaves and who the slave owners chose. There's a whole lot of stuff that I think hasn't been unpacked. Elaine.
I would kind of like to challenge Dorian's statement. I would say that Black women on campus definitely do receive the same amount of racism and stuff that Black men on campus do. And in order to fully unpack this, we have to talk about the aspects of misogynoir and the ways in which there are more Black women on campus than there are Black men. And Black men, a lot of times, have more of the ability to adapt themselves into white spaces. And what I mean by that is when you're walking around campus, you will see a lot of groups. It'll be a group of white people, and then there will always be one random Black man. But Black women always have to put themselves into positions where they have to create things for themselves. And as a Black woman on campus, I definitely have had a lot of experiences where I am considered aggressive or angry or just loud or out of pocket when I'm not even doing anything. And I feel like that's something that a lot of times when people look at these spaces, they kind of, because of what history or the history of the Black population, you will automatically think that the Black male experience might be more intense. But from what I've seen at Madison, because there are fewer Black males and many of the Black males that are on campus are able to have the ability to go into those spaces. I would say that Black women on the campus have the same amount of experiences and stuff. And I would say that Black women, the whole idea of, well, we're men, so we're able to handle things better. It's just like Black women are going through the same things too. It's just that Black women are not allowed the space to speak about it, because when we do, we're perceived as overly emotional. And we also have different sets of responsibilities, because if a Black woman is to speak on these things, she has to do a lot to kind of protect herself, not only as a Black person, but also as a woman. So it's I would say they both have experiences, but these experiences can't really be compared in the same way because there's different nuances to both.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to say that Black women didn't experience those kind of interactions. I was kind of just saying that, like, when that with those differences, that, like, adding on to what you said, like, women aren't allowed to necessarily speak about it all the time. So
it's got me think. Thank you for bringing that back in, Dorian. Elaine, as you were talking, made me think there are two things at play. One, are Black men adaptable so that they can be the one in that group? But are white spaces more open to Black men because they seem to be less of a threat than Black women? And that's sort of rhetorical too. So I mean, I'm not wanting to take us down that rabbit trail, but I'm saying, for all the reasons that you just mentioned, Elaine, I think it's twofold. I think there's probably a greater readiness, maybe because people think they see more Black folks in sports or on TV or what have you. Black men, I don't know what all the deals are, but I feel that in predominantly white spaces, there's a greater acceptance to Black men because they seem to pose a less of a threat. I'm going to oversimplify, but it could be the whole thing about white men liking Black men swag. It could be the thing about white women liking Black men. It could be a number of things that makes that open. But I think that there are different liberties offered to Black men in a predominantly white space than it is for Black women. Elaine, was your hand up again, or was that up from last time? I'm sorry. Go.
Oh, my hand was up again. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I was going to say that I definitely agree with that statement. And there are kind of different kind of ways in which people of the Black diaspora can interact with certain spaces based off of what their gender and even their sexuality might be. And what this looks like is we see, because there's a lot of Black men shown in media, Black men are shown a lot of times in all different sorts of media. That makes it so that people who are not Black have this kind of idea of Black men. And a lot of times they're kind of idolized. And we see it a lot of times with meme culture. We see it a lot of times with social media culture, where people will make jokes about being like, oh, I'm not white, I'm light skinned, I'm a Black man, look at my waves. And we see people from other cultures and other races and ethnicity adopting things that are part of Black male culture because they see Black men as cool and idolize them. And that is why a lot of times, and also there also is the fetishization of Black men from white culture, specifically with white women. And that is why a lot of times we will see Black men have different reception in spaces, but Black women don't receive that same kind of treatment and are treated more so as kind of cast-offs or bottom of the barrel. So that is why you will not see the same way in which you'll see a Black man with a group of non-Black people. It will be mostly Black women will be with groups of other Black people, unless it is a mixed Black woman, which then adds into another layer of a lot of times the Black woman will be exploring her identity and everything, which will add like another layer to it. But I would say most of the time, Black men are more so accepted into white spaces than Black women are.
Thank you. Grace, let me get you. I'm sorry, I could get one more because I have to just get to the last question before I begin to wrap up our time. But Grace, your hand was up.
Yeah, I was gonna echo Elaine's point of misogynoir and say that I feel like Black women in a lot of predominantly white spaces are to be seen and not heard. And just from a personal experience, I was in a FIG, which is a first year interest group. I was in a biology FIG when I first came to UW. And I was with the same group of students for our math class, our English class, and our bio class. And I remember when I wasn't talking, there was a group of white girls that were like, "Oh my God, you're so pretty!" Like, and I'd be like, "Thank you." But then in my English class, when I would speak on, whatever it is we were talking about, one girl from that same group would call me really pretty when I was quiet, would call me intimidating. And one day I was getting really tired of it because it wasn't a word that had ever been used to describe me before. So I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "You just really know what you're talking about." And then I was like, "Oh, okay."
And that's intimidating.
Yeah. And I remember like in that moment that she told me I really know what I'm talking about, I remember having read about people who had gone through exactly what I've been through. So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I actually got into it." And I told her about the scholarships and all the schools that I got into, just so she could know how to use the word correctly next time she brought it up.
Yeah, don't call you intimidating.
Right.
Oh my goodness, you all.
Yeah.
Listen, when we were talking earlier, I mean, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, with a group of you, we were talking about the importance of the community embracing you and having space in the community that's really important, because I could just imagine when all of this is going on, it's got to be tough to find, support and solace in the community. So as you've been, just thinking about what the needs for Black students are at a predominantly white institution, particularly like Wisconsin, does the coalition see an importance or a need or even room for Black alumni out in the community to make space for you all, connect with you all? Is that something that's important to you all? Because I feel a responsibility to do that, but don't want to overstep my boundaries. We're doing this work, that we've been talking with campus about the Center for Black Excellence in Culture, because we know that for Black students to be here, they need to have space, in my opinion. If I remember back from, I lived in the community, so I could leave it every day. I didn't stay in the dorms to save money. So every day I went back home where I could get cornbread and collard greens. I could listen to people talk. I lived at home with my mom and my sister. We were all students at the same time, but we could get away. As you think about what Black students need in predominantly white institutions, is that an important piece of what would help to provide support and protection to students, having space near campus, off campus, where you could interact with Black alumni and Black community members? Is that important to you all as students? Stephanie, that's in your head. Y'all are nodding. So I need somebody to say yeah or no. Just
Yeah. Very much so. I think I'm gonna ask Grace to like unmute herself just because we can kind of both talk about this. But we were in the car together when Grace got a call from a couple Black alumni who basically were expressing like their support for us as a coalition and as individuals. And we both were like, I was driving, so I was like trying to like keep it together, and but we both like were crying because it was such a beautiful moment of knowing that there are other people, especially people who've done this before, and they are
Right.
able to say, we're supporting you in whatever way you need, because then that makes it feel like this fight isn't just for us, it's for um, incoming students, but it's also for the alumni that that work here, and we're fighting for the same thing and maybe didn't get that. And I think that moment, all in all, was just, it was so beautiful in the way that one of the Grace, I don't remember his name. Do you remember who exactly it was?
Yeah. So I remember what day it was too, just because on May 4th, an article had been released with my full name, and it was
Oh,
naming me as the leader of the Black Power Coalition. And I remember during the interview at Madison 365, I told I said, don't use my full name if you're going to use my name at all, right? And he was like, okay. I made sure to let him know twice, but he posted the article on May 4th with my full name. And I remember I didn't sleep that night. I was up with
so
Stephanie
sorry.
and a friend named Yancy, and Yancy's uncle knows the reporter and was able to get my name taken down. But I was really, really shaken up. Um, and I got a call from Ruben Cotton, who is an alum. He now lives in Milwaukee, I believe.
He was on campus when I was on campus.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was on campus or when I was in the admissions office, because
Yeah.
I remember Ruben.
Yeah, he reached out to me. He was like, I just wanted to let you know that we're with you. Like, this is not the first time that Black students have come together, and you're not going to lose your scholarships. I remember being really scared of that. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just one, we had just gotten in it. It was just very intense.
Wow.
And his another man that was on the call, his name is Charles, and he's a lawyer in Chicago now. He was like, oh,
Charles Holly.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
We were on campus together. He wrote the Holly report back in the 80s when
Mhm.
I was on campus because of incidents. All of this stuff triggered me as a person who was on campus in the 80s.
Yeah.
The slave trade, our advisors being threatened. The FBI had to issue an investigation because it was called the Academic Advancement Program. I think it's called ACE now, ACE, but it was a
Mhm.
program for students of color who were not regularly admissible. I wasn't, and we were all on campus and knew each other. So you're
Yeah.
right. This is not the first time, and it touches my heart that they reached out to you, because these are folks. Yeah, we're thinking, wait, this happened in the 80s and we're still talking about this in the 2020s?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Ruben made sure to let me know. He said, I know, because I was like, okay, how come I didn't know about you? I learned about the class of 1969. I didn't know y'all were out here doing this, because Charles told me. He said I was applying to law school while, fighting. I was like, that's incredible. How come they didn't tell me? And Ruben was like, it's because they want us to be old and walk into our graves before they let you know about us. I want you to know about us while we're still standing strong, because right now we look like your big brothers. I was like, I know that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it
And
was
it was incredible.
grounding.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. It was really grounding just to know that, we stand on the shoulders of giants, because this work has been done before and we do have people to look up to. So yes, we would encourage that alumni reach out to us. We need to know the people who paved the way for us.
I definitely. Two more quick questions.
And
I'm so sorry. I see the hands up, but I'm so sorry
oh,
because I
you're
don't want to just trying to stay within the time frame. I am really, and listen, I don't mind coming back in a few months and doing a part 2 of this. So please know, because you all touched upon some stuff that I think is really, really important. And I would love to have that happen. Let me ask you this. How many of you are coming back this fall, if you're able to say? Is that an unfair question? And so I'm seeing everyone's hands. So for those of you that listen, wait, Stephanie, I didn't see your hands. Is that because you graduated, or Stephanie,
yeah.
I'm
Nope.
out?
I'm
Okay,
coming back.
I thought Stephanie said I'm out. Okay, so the campus is fortunate enough to have you all. Here's a question I want to ask you, and I would love for each of you to unmute yourself so that you could answer this. How were you stronger? Not because of her video, but because of what's happened in you or amongst you all as a group. How are you stronger as a person? Because of what you all have been able to accomplish and you're still accomplishing. And please go in any order. But I will say this, Lisa, I haven't heard anything from you yet. Can I put you on the spot, Lisa, that others can jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. So I would say this made me stronger because I have a goal. I want to be a lawyer. That has been my goal for the longest time. And I'm not the type of person to let anything stop me from achieving that goal. I come from an immigrant family where I am the second person to go to college. My sister was first because she's 10 years older than me, so she went first. But when my parents came to America, they had a dream that both me and my sister would be successful. And I wanted to accomplish that dream no matter what happened. So when this video came out and all these protests were happening, I got asked, how can you still focus on school? How can you still like go forward? And I'm like, because I don't want to let one video, one person who thought like I should go like back and save time stop me from achieving my goal and achieving my dream career, because it's something that I have worked hard for. I've invested money and time into, and it's something that I will never stop working for until I achieve it. I'm not going to let one person who doesn't like somebody like me, who doesn't respect my identity, stop me from achieving that.
I heard that. Thank you. Who else would like to go?
I can go.
Sure.
I guess what this whole experience has taught me, I already knew, but it taught me that like when things happen, I have like ice through my veins. I am cool, calm, collected. I'm not the type of person to be like, I'm like, okay, what needs to get done? How can we get this done? What's the quickest way to get it done? It really taught me that I am I'm just chill. Cause it's just like at the end of the day, there's always going to be someone who's racist. There's always going to be someone who doesn't like me. There's always
Yes,
going to be
ma'am. Yes,
someone
ma'am.
who is going to say something against me. And what matters most is my response to that. If I allow them to put me into a place or a position where I am worried about it or allowing it to stress me out, I am not going to be successful, because at the end of the day, I already know. I haven't met my husband yet, but I'm a wife and a mother. I haven't had no kids yet, but I already know my future. Like in my bank account, I have $1 billion already. It's not there right now, but I already know. I know who I am. So I'm not going to allow somebody to take me off of my path and to knock me down. So it really just made me more confident in my future, knowing that I will be put into more situations and spaces like this. Because
Yes,
around
you
this
will.
time, like there was white people coming after my job, trying to get me fired and everything. And the way I handled it with such grace really made me realize, I was like, okay, I'm Olivia Pope. I got this.
I got this. Elaine, are you at liberty to say the name of the school that's named after your grandfather?
Yeah, I can say, usually I don't use my real name.
Okay. No, I won't ask you.
It's fine. It's fine. My real name's Jakayla Johnson, and my great grandfather is Al Raby. He worked with Dr. Martin Luther King during the Chicago
Wow.
race riots and he helped to kind of with the children's march and everything and the segregation that was going on in Chicago. So Al Raby High School is named after my great grandfather. And he also was the campaign manager for Harold Washington, the first Black mayor of Chicago. So
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so you are royalty. It is in your veins. That's not just ice in your veins. That is royalty. This, you come by this rightly. I love it. You also need your own YouTube channel. Who else would like to? Who else would like to say how this has? And I mean that I'm serious about that. Who else would like to say how this has made them different? Grace, I haven't heard from you. Dorian and Stephanie, have I heard from you?
No, not yet.
Sure.
I can speak on it. Okay, sorry, Dorian.
All right, no,
So
you
I
go.
was gonna say the way this has made me stronger is one of the members of the media team who wasn't able to be here said something that really stuck with me, and he said that this is what the 2% looks like. The 2% of the Black student body when we showed up and shut down the streets and enjoyed each other's company and were allowed to take up space and be happy that finding the people that I have found in the last few weeks, it might not be able to like, be told by how we interact with each other, but me and Grace just met. um, we met literally like 2.5 weeks ago when everything was going on, and we are one in the same person, or the same one. I don't know how the phrase goes, but I have found community that I didn't know existed. And in the sense that we have come together in numbers, there's people I've seen around campus and I didn't even know, like, we're like the same major, we're the same, background, things like that. Like me and Grace coming from the same country, sharing that background, it felt like I was home. And I told her that because we were in the BCC speaking Swahili together. And I told my mom about that. It literally made my heart melt because I was like, this has made me stronger in the sense that it's unfortunate that we come together in these numbers when tragedies happen, but it's also the beauty of that. And the amount of people now that I'm like, these are friends, these are like, people I can rely on is beautiful, because for a while I did feel like, okay, I transferred here, everyone's already got their friends and things like that, and it felt very excluding. I would go to class, go to my apartment, go to class, go to my apartment, but now it's like I don't get home till 11 midnight because I'm kicking it with some friends. I'm meeting new people, just having a college experience that's not filled with just constantly having to fight. So within the fight, I found friendships and community that are gonna last, I think, forever. I mean, and it's been beautiful.
That is so beautiful. Dorian, and then Grace, I'll let you have the last one. Dorian, how has this changed you for the positive, for the better?
Sure. I feel like when everything just initially started, it made me realize how powerful my voice was. I also realized that I had a feeling of duty that I needed to serve my community. And while I was on the streets protesting with them, it just felt like we are strong when we have a united Black voice. And I'm just really grateful to even be a part of this. Like, I didn't even think this was even going to become a thing. Like, when we were first talking about it to where it is now, it's just, I'm proud of everyone and the work that everybody has put in.
I am too. And Grace.
Yeah, I've learned that we still here. And it's something that, Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, "We Real Cool, We Die." I love that poem and I used to recite it all the time, but now it's like, I don't know, it means so much more than it did before. Because when I first came to UW, I would hear, "Oh, you belong here, you deserve to be here, blah, blah, blah." But now I feel it, because I see all these people that look like me, all these people that share my experience, and we're all coming back as far as I know. And I think that says a lot because of what we've been through. And man, I'm not about to cry on this interview, but we're still here. And
Yes, you are.
yeah, that's all.
Listen, you all, I want you to know, as a proud alumnus, I've got my family has 13 degrees from Wisconsin. My mom has 2, my daughter has 2. It breaks my heart that it's harder for you all than it was for my mother in 1970. In 1969, there were around 1,200 Black students, 1,200 in the 60s. In the 2020s, is half that. And part of it, quite honest, was shit like this happening on campus and nobody doing anything about it. And you all put yourselves, your majors, your energy on hold. I mean, your own momentum for your own career on hold to step up for the greater good. And I need you all to know that maybe we haven't all come together because we've been absorbed into our worlds and our careers, but as Black alumni, we are proud of you all. We are so proud of your majors and what you're doing. And then you all are also doing things that we didn't always do. The fact that African American students and students of African descent are working together in this voice, because when I was on campus, we were very separate. We didn't have movements where it was African American folks and then people saying they're from Kenya. That's y'all's problem. This is our problem. So the fact that you all have found your ways to each other, it just touches me deeply. The other thing I want to say is there's a reason why folks don't want us here. UW Madison, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, is a portal to the world. That for the rest of your lives, you'll hear people say, oh, you went to Wisconsin, because it's not just another state school. It is internationally renowned. And it's going to set you into, like what you were saying, Emily, it is a microcosm of the real world. That if you can make it here and deal with this foolishness here, you can deal with it in government, in law, in medicine, no matter where you are. It really is a preparation. And that's what I keep telling myself, is what I told my daughter when she was here. And my ability to navigate in the community, I'm creating space for Black people. Let me just show you all a picture of something for just a minute. I'm creating a center for Black excellence and culture so that people from the African diaspora in the city of Madison can have a place to come. Well, let me just show you something. This is my mama and me and my sister when we were in school back in the 80s. We'll go over this sometimes. I want to have y'all over. This is the inside drawings. I've been able to raise $24 million in this community in less than a year because I learned how to be true to my Blackness, but understand how the white community works. So I could put together Black communities and Black board and build and we're going to break ground next year. We're only $3 million away. But I'm creating this. You all reminded me of why I'm creating this. Because when all hell breaks loose and the boo-boo hits the fan, I don't need y'all wondering where you're going to be. I need y'all to be someplace where we're already there waiting for you. Not space that you got to figure out, can we get there? Is it safe? Is it white on? There's theater space and there's space for the African diaspora, so that there's a Kenyan night one night of the month. There's a Ghanaian night. There's a Jamaican night. There's a Southern night, because we have to preserve this Blackness, because it is what gave us strength to endure the harsh treatment that we've experienced in this country. And in a time where older people are cynical because we want to focus on whatever we think y'all are listening to or dancing to, dressing to, and not understand your collective brilliance and your strength, and that you all do represent us well. You do make us proud. And so I'm hoping that between the space at the center, or older Black alumni who are still in this city, who can still cook some greens and learn to cook some Kenyan food, we got the pots and stuff for y'all, just got to show us how to do it, that we have an opportunity to model an intergenerational thing that revitalizes us, but also gives you hope that people who have suffered similarly can go on and make a killing in medicine, in law, in academics, in nonprofit work. And so you all are a great reflection of our future, but we want to be a great reflection of your past, to understand that you're on the right track, that you're doing the right thing, and that we're proud that you're not giving up your scholarships or your place on this campus, because you deserve to be here and you deserve to shine among these people. And there's pressures to keep us out of here because we're already sharp without it. But with it, we acquire tools that make us extra ordinary. And so I give you all my commitment as an alumni, Black alumni, former staff member on campus, to being a bridge to any way that I can to connect with you all. For those of you, and we can do more of this off the air. Grace has my phone number and stuff. If y'all are in Madison, I would love to have y'all someplace for lunch over to our house. My wife is an alumni too. She's from Kenwood, by way of Alabama, by way of Kenwood. So I got a Southern lady, but we've been married 35 years next month, and we have a heart to really be here for Black students in it. But until this happened, I didn't know how to find y'all. I didn't know how, where are they connected? How do we get them connected? So we're gonna make good out of this bad. We're gonna stand together. Y'all are gonna get your degrees. You're gonna get your admissions to medical school and law school and all those other things that you want to do. But I want you all to know that even if it sounds like leaders aren't hearing you, the world is hearing you and watching you. And even if you're not getting what you think you need right now, There are people right now who can make decisions, people right now writing checks, people right now with decisive voices who are hearing y'all and feeling you all. And the reason why I wanted to do this is that I wanted them to hear your voices and not something that's filtered through white media or other outlets. I wanted a place where you all could say what you thought and what you felt. And you told your stories so that people understand that you are just brilliant people who happen to be Black and happen to be students on this campus. So I'm so proud of you all. And I'm serious. For those of you that are not on campus, I'm saying serious. For those of you in Madison, I want to connect in the next few weeks. For those of you who aren't, you have a standing invitation. We're going to get together in this fall to connect and not talk about this, just talk about life and dreams and bringing some other alumni to the table. And so I just want to really say to you, Lisa and Stephanie and Elaine and Grace and Dorian, it's really been my pleasure to be here with you all. You all inspire me. You all remind me of why I do the work that I do. And I know that your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, mentors, whoever helped get y'all to this point must be so, so proud of you. Because I've only interacted with you all for the last hour. And I wish that you are my family. I know the people who are blood kin to you must be so proud of you all. So keep doing what y'all do. This has been another special episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. Listen, I don't want you all just to listen in to what these wonderful students have said. Share this, post this. You know people who need to hear what happens when you all white people are silent when this kind of stuff happens. A lot of times we'll make noise when these things happen. Unfortunately, they really start moving when white people and non-Black people start speaking up. So for my listeners, for people who want to wake up, you know what to do with this podcast. Don't share with your Black friends and ask this, is this how you feel? Share it with your white friends and say, this is what happens when we are quiet. Because somebody should have checked, oh girl. And they shouldn't have to have waited for Black people to do it. So for those of you who consider yourselves woke or mildly sleepwalking, don't just listen to this and then go on to your next podcast du jour. Listen to this a couple times and send this to people whose hearts and minds need to be changed. Thank you for being a part of Black Like Me. Click the link to find the letter that the students presented to the chancellor. Click the link to find out how you can support our podcast on Patreon, and write a review, write a comment, and again, share this. Most importantly, I want to thank those of you who are supporters of this podcast and those of you who listen. Have a great day, and thank you for being a part of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G.
Black Like Me. Black like me.
Wow, I really enjoyed today's conversation, and I know that you did too. You know, with each episode, I challenge my listeners to do a number of things: to lean in, to learn, to reflect, to share, to donate, but more importantly, to act on what has inspired you in today's episode. You know, the benefit of being around for 8 seasons is that people constantly stop me and tell me how much they love the show, and they even give me ideas and suggestions about Black icebreakers. But you know, I couldn't have pulled this off alone. So let me take a moment so that I can acknowledge and thank my crew. Engineers and producers, Jeremy and Eli. Also a member of my creative team is Jakisha. The music was produced by Corey Saffold, and Marcus Fleming is on vocals. And of course, you, our Patreon supporters, and all of our listeners. Thank you. To everyone who listens to this podcast and you decide to share it with someone who needs it, to everyone who listens and then reposts it on your own social media accounts, to everyone who hears something that moves them to act differently, act better, and to everyone who leans in to understand Black life more honestly, thank you.
Black like me.